Welcome to my home. This is Tomdachoille. It's a little hamlet about 2 miles outside of Pitlochry. Behind me to my left you see the River Tummel. That's one of Scotland's best salmon rivers. But we're not here to talk about fish. What I want to show you is Tomdachoille Distillery, and if you come with me we can take a look. So, my wife and I bought the distillery here and our house about 2 years ago. This is a fairly typical farmhouse distillery from the early part of the 19th century. What's remarkable about it is that it has survived pretty well intact. It's derelict now, as you're going to see. We've got some plans for that. But the basic form of the distillery, the building shape and its structures still survive intact. A guy called Charles Duff began distilling here in 1816, and he continued working at the Tomdachoille Distillery till 1878, when the distillery closed down in the face of the industrialization of the industry, and he moved to Speyside, where he opened up again on a grander scale. Duffs were quite a well-renowned distiller. They had an operation here and a couple of other farm distilleries elsewhere in Perthshire. In 1831, the Royal Commission on Whisky recorded the production here. He had a small wash still and a spirit still and was making about 1,000 gallons of whisky a year, which was fairly typical for this size of operation. We know something about the scale of the distillery, and we know that Duff was operating 2 stills, which made him quite a significant operator, and the distillery lasted for about 60 years. Unfortunately, there aren't any records of the layout of the distillery, but up to my left you can see a ventilator, and we can imagine that below that would have been the open fire that heated the copper stills back in the middle of the 19th century. Okay, here we are again at the front of the distillery, and here's probably where the still house was. I love this beam. Look at this. It's rotten, it's falling apart. But they put that beam in 1816. Napoleon had just been defeated at Waterloo. That wood was 100 years old right then. Here's our water, the Tomdachoille burn. And here's a jug from Duff's Whisky, probably after they went to Speyside. Let's go and get a dram. So Charles Duff and his family distilled and lived and worked around here for 60 years. But by the 1870s, the industry was changing. Blending had come in and was dominating the market, and the industrialization of distilling had begun. So a distillery like this was too small to compete with the new large-scale distilleries that were being built. And in 1878, they closed the distillery here and moved their business to Speyside. The buildings lay empty for a long time. They were used as farm buildings, and then in the 1950s and 1960s there was a dairy here, and this is one of the milk bottles from the milk that was produced here. But the distillery is going to go on to a new life. In the next year my wife and I are going to restore these buildings. We have architects' plans, and they're going to become 2 rental holiday cottages, so people can come and stay at the Tomdachoille Distillery. So what I'd like to do now, we found a little secret cache of whisky, and we got some Tomdachoille water, and we got a Duff's jug. So I think a little toast to the new spirit at Tomdachoille. Sláinte.